The NBA offseason is already off to a crazy start with the trades with LaMelo Ball. Giannis has been traded, but there are also some big names that are still out there on the market, namely Jaylen Brown. Reportedly, a number of teams being interested in Jaylen Brown. Today's episode, me and Swipe are going to talk about that, the Pistons being involved in that talk, maybe with Jalen Duren as the piece that they're dangling there, and them just acquiring Isaiah Joe. We're going to talk about all that and which player is going to have the best season with their new team. All that and more on today's Locked On NBA Game Night.
When that final buzzer rings, you know it's time for Locked On NBA Game Night. All the post-game reactions to every game across the league, every single night, with insights only the hosts at Locked On can provide. It's the true NBA fans' one stop for all the action. Every game, every night. It's Locked On NBA Game Night. Tipping off now.
Thank you for tuning in to another episode of Locked On NBA Game Night, where it's every game, every night, even when there's no games. I'm Haize, one of the hosts of Locked On Bulls. I'm joined, as I am every Friday, by Swiper, one of the hosts of Locked On Nuggets. And today's episode, by the way, is brought to you guys by Odoo. Great organizations win because operations matter, and that's why you should get Odoo. Try it for free today at odoo.com/lockedon. That's odoo.com/lockedon. Swiper, we got a lot to talk about today that happened around the NBA, namely this Jaylen Brown thing. Like, we talked about that and him being mentioned in Giannis, but now it seems like it's now gone into a full on, listening to offers, and that Jaylen Brown could seriously be traded sometime this summer. How are you feeling about it, Swiper?
Yeah, look, it's this simple. I think that the information that came out surrounding Jaylen Brown and Giannis Antetokounmpo was revealing on several fronts. One, that Giannis Antetokounmpo was a real prospect for the Boston Celtics. I, as a basketball fan, was hoping he was going to end up with the Boston Celtics, but hopefully in Miami he'll have success. But on the other end of this, Boston had been mentioned in trades before surrounding Jaylen Brown. They were mentioned in trades before surrounding Kevin Durant, but I do not remember it being as heavily covered that he was offered for Kevin Durant. There was a lot of conversation around it, but it never got to this loud. But even since then, right? That was 2022-23. It's been 3 years since that point. Since that point, Boston's won a title. Jaylen Brown's won conference finals MVP. Jaylen Brown's won finals MVP. Jaylen Brown's been a top 6 MVP finisher. And Jaylen Brown's made second team All-NBA while averaging almost 30 points a game, leading the Boston Celtics without Jason Tatum, without Drew Holiday, without Kristaps Porzingis to 56 wins in the Eastern Conference, and they had a chance to win in the first round, up 3-1, and then obviously they didn't get the job done. So if you look at it from Jaylen Brown's perspective, I am a pillar of this organization. I've been a pillar of the organization. Everything that they've done, Brad Stevens even said this himself, we have done this with the idea of having Tatum and Brown together. And I think, and you look at Jaylen Brown has felt like, I've been here for every Eastern Conference Finals run, both of our titles runs. I have the awards behind my name. I got all NBAs behind my name. Why is it that the way that I am being talked about and dealt with within my organization is differently than Jason Tatum, who came a year after me and hasn't had any of his success without me being here? And then the moment he isn't here, I have my own level of individual success. And I think Tatum, the highest he finished, is fourth in MVP voting one year. But, Jaylen Brown's like, okay, I finished like 6. So I think some of this is like, I don't think that Brown feels that the organization values him like they should. Yes, I have the biggest contract in NBA history, but I'm following through. I'm doing my part to make sure that's a worthwhile deal. So I think that Jaylen Brown is going to be traded because I think he has already communicated publicly that he definitely views himself as a number one, as a top end player in this sport. And I think that because of behind the scenes stuff where he's had agreements and obviously in conversations with Brad and them have told you you're a pillar of this team. Well, that doesn't feel like it. And, Chris Broussard on First Things First did say something interesting the other day. Hey, JB, even if you were offered in the KD deal the same way you were offered in the Giannis deal, those are 2 of the 20 best players ever.
Yeah.
If anything, you should take it as a compliment that these teams are coveting you to that degree. They want you to be a replacement to their all-time great star. But I don't know if JB feels that way. So I do think he's going to end up traded, and I don't know exactly where. I know there's a lot of stuff surrounding the Minnesota Timberwolves, obviously stuff surrounding the Detroit Pistons now and Jalen Duren. I know the Denver Nuggets There's conversations around all that stuff. There are several suitors. JB is a fantastic player. I think that he would be a great fit wherever he goes. But I do think this might have run its course, Haize, because I don't know how you would feel if you were somewhere for 10 years and then for an injury-prone player who has no say in this program whatsoever, you were willing to deal me for him, even though I've been a part of every successful iteration of this team since the 08 team. Would you feel some type of way, Haize, if you were JB?
Yeah, I mean, listen, to me, it's that the fact that you shopped him for somebody who's going to be a Hall of Famer. I think I personally would be able to have a level head about that, but I'm not going to act like the human element doesn't play a part. Like Jaylen Brown is part of why the Boston Celtics are the team that they are right now. He is just as much as Jason Tatum maximized on every bit of the potential that he had as a player, and he's turned himself into one of the better two-way players in this league. So, yeah, Jaylen Brown's right to have any type of feeling in the way that he does. And if that has now made him say, listen, I might as well go get my own team or whatever it is, I can't blame him for it. Like, this is one of those situations where I don't have any blame towards the player if they've looked at this situation and the way things have gone after keeping that team together with Jason Tatum out and injured, no front court really depth to speak of for the majority of the season. Kept that team afloat in the top 4 or 5 all season long, and where they finally moved up to where they finished the season at number 2. I think they were the second best team in the East per record. I would definitely feel a way about that.
So for you, is that an end all be all? Like, is this going to be the last moment, do you think, that when they're all together and when everything is said and done, is this going to be it? Is this the story of JB and JT? Is this a legacy now that, hey, we did our job, we went to multiple Eastern Conference finals together, we went to the NBA finals? Do you think this is the last moment that Jaylen Brown will be a Boston Celtic?
No, I think that Boston's going to look at the offers. Now, the Jalen Duren part of it, which you talk a little bit about at the end of this segment and the beginning of next, but the Jalen Duren thing could get interesting with a twist. But to me, I think Boston's going to look at all the offers out there and going to say, this doesn't get us any better. Let's just go ahead with, there's still 3 years of Jaylen Brown under contract. Let's hope that we can get this thing solved in 3 years.
I hear you, man. It's tough to me though, Haize, because relationships are everything in the league.
Yeah.
And I mean, I'm sure you have stories that, like, there are some of the pettiest reasons why people are traded, why they don't resign, why they don't talk to certain organizations. If an agent doesn't have a good relationship with the GM, no matter the fit, that agent is not going to work with that GM. And if something happens while a player's in that organization that they feel like their player got slighted, the agent will not work with you on the contract renegotiation unless you're going to pay a crazy price. So I don't know on the internal workings if this is like an end-all be-all for JB, but I just feel like it feels like it kind of deserves a fresh start. Some people, Haize, said that, he's a grown-up. He's making $300 million. This is the pros. You don't have time to be sulking in your feelings and all that. And I get it as an individual, but at the same time, like, these are relationships, and
these are still humans. Like, I get the mindset of, like, so it's a lot different for me and you to say, let's suck it up and just go to work and get this over with, than it is for, like, a player who, like, the teammate aspect of it, the relationships, the brotherhood, the family that a team is supposed to be, especially when you want to go to battle to win titles, is a lot different than just me and you going to clock into work and getting through an 8-hour shift.
Yeah. So we're going to find out, man. I think it's going to be a very interesting story. I would personally like to see, what it looked like. The Wolves obviously just re-upped with, LaMelo. I'd be curious to see if they're willing to, still get involved in that in some way, shape, and form. I'd be curious to see what happened with Detroit, because obviously this whole Jalen Duren situation, even though they apparently came out and said that we're not trading Jalen Duren, he's going to be a part of our future. Obviously if somebody covers the Nuggets, I think JB would be a great fit in Denver, but then working out how that would look like. So maybe it is that there just are not a lot of great options and he ends up staying. But I do think JB is mature enough and he's a good enough leader that should he stay, that he'll be able to reconcile with the org and to just realize, hey, business is business. But you know what? In the future, discounts and all that other stuff, that's all off the table, because this is what it is. Like, now, hey, that's the other part people don't understand. Like, I may have been giving you some graces off the floor that you're not aware of, that the public isn't aware of.
That's true. That's very much true.
All that stuff is a wrap now. Like, I want everything I want.
If it's going to be business, it's going to be business. One part of that, as you alluded to, is the fact that Now the Pistons is reported like they are interested in Jaylen Brown, as they should. And is Jalen Duren the piece to get that all done? We're going to talk about that plus their acquisition of Isaiah Joe right after this. Before we get into that, we do got to get into a message from one of our sponsors, and that is Game Time. There are more live events than ever worth seeing right now. Games, concerts, comedy shows, festivals. The hard part isn't usually deciding what you want to attend. It's actually getting the tickets. Between long wait times, confusing checkout processes, and surprise fees, buying tickets can sometimes feel harder than it should. That's why so many fans are turning to Game Time. The app is built to make buying tickets simple with upfront pricing, seat views before you buy, and exclusive savings opportunities that help you get to the events you want without the usual hassle. My biggest pet peeve is when you think you found a great deal, get all the way to checkout, and suddenly the final price looks a bit different. Game Time takes that guesswork out. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets to every type of event with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDON for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code. That's LOCKEDON for $20 off. Download the Game Time app today. We're Locked On Game Night coming up next.
All right, Swiper. So, let's get this going because of the Jaylen Brown thing. We'll talk about the Isaiah Joe acquisition.
You adjusted your voice, by the way. Your voice box is on.
Hit the wrong button. Thank you for that. Because I would have went through the whole rest of the show. That would have been
I should have let it rock. I know when they listen to this, they're gonna be like, "Yo, what just happened, dog? What kind of podcast is this?"
That is hilarious. So Jalen Duren. The Pistons and Jalen Duren have reportedly had a hard time working out a contract. They now are exploring signing trades. There's rumors coming out that the Celtics and the Pistons have talked a Jalen Duren signing trade. Let me ask you this. If the Pistons are seriously calling and trying to get Jaylen Brown, I looked at this and we talked about this a little bit on the daily version of Locked On NBA. I said to myself about it, like, if I'm the Celtics, now can't just be Jalen Duren. I'm going to try to get Ausar Thompson too. Now, I doubt that they're going to want to do that, but we can't start the conversation off without Ausar Thompson being part of that conversation.
I mean, you know how this is though. Like, everybody has their pillars, and it's not going to happen. You know, you're not getting Ausar Thompson. Like, it's just no way.
Which they should not trade Ausar Thompson. Yeah.
Now, Duren on the other end, the issue is that as good as JB is, and he's obviously a good bit better than Jalen Duren, the center position then becomes kind of that's a pretty big hole because it's flawed as Duren is as a player. He still obviously is very good, and he does a lot of things on the rebounding and just the finishing stuff that they need that I think would cause a lot of issues. Now, they do have backup obviously in B-Ball Paul, and he's obviously a really good player, and he was better than Jalen Duren was in the playoffs this year. They did draft Onyenso in the draft this year. And so out of Virginia. So maybe, he'll be a good replacement as well. He's about 6'11", 21 years old. So they do have some sitters, but losing that and then being like, hey, all right, Tobias Harris, he's not signed to the team right now. He's getting off of a 2-year, $52 million deal. We want to resign him, or you can let him walk, and then you can put JB in that spot. But I do think they would need to get a little bit of size somewhere in free agency to make it happen. But if the Celtics did it, and now you're saying, hey, we got Peyton Pritchard, Sam Hauser, and we have obviously Jason Tatum, and now we're building around Jalen Duren as a part of our core, then, yeah, I mean, there's a world where I think for the Celtics, they could find out, just like how good they could be with a bona fide center on the floor. But they got Kata, and they like Kata a lot. Derek White is obviously still there. Baylor Shireman was really good last year. Vucevic, I don't know. I think he might be expiring as well. Hugo Gonzalez. They drafted Sinak this year. So, again, the Celtics, another great draft pick out of Houston. But I wouldn't make that trade if I was the Celtics. I don't care enough about having, this, 19-10 center on my roster who's not he's a good defender, but not like an elite defender. And he's a good offensive player, but he's not walk away, give him the bucket. Like when Joel Embiid played them in the first round this last year, you could drop the ball off to Embiid and he's just going to go to work. And then when he's healthy, his defense is transformational for what's happening. I don't think Duren is like that. And I don't know when or if he gets to that point, but I'm definitely, if I'm the Celtics, I'm more inclined to hold on to JB there.
Yeah. I mean, the Pistons, I think this is a case where both teams should just hold on to their pieces. Like, I get it if you can't work it out with Jalen Duren to explore some things. Maybe it helps him and his agent realize their actual value, that's out there on the market, especially considering the playoff series. But I don't know. Like, to me, like, Jalen Duren and Cade was such a good duo in the regular season that it feels like this would be such an overreaction to one bad playoff series, where it's like centers sometimes have bad playoff series when they first start. Like, it was the second playoff run. Like, give it some time. I think it'll be fine.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, just give him a chance. And, Jalen obviously is looking for the money. I mean, that's really what it is. It's just like you have to be able to find ways to up your game and up your level. And again, because he's so young, I think there's a lot of room to grow there. And so I think you absolutely want to continue to just give him opportunity after opportunity on a fair deal, though. And I think that's where the question is like, what does that look like? Is he going to make, if you just go through NBA contracts right now, right, and you're looking at some of the centers, most centers don't make a lot of money. They are in the 30s, and they're like, depending on the level that you're at, you obviously have your Jokic, who's making, $65+ million a year, can make him 59 this next year. Anthony Davis is making 58. Then you have Joel Embiid, obviously, who's considered one of the worst contracts in the league because of the injuries. 53. He has 58, 62, and 67 left on a player option, which is just like obviously crazy. Karl-Anthony Towns has 57 and 61 left. But these are like all players that are way better than Duren. And so the question becomes, it's like, okay, where does he belong? And if you ask me, Haize, Julius Randle makes $33 million a year. Alperen Sengun makes $35 million a year. Rudy Gobert makes $36 million a year. He's in that range. He is not a $40 million a year player.
I agree with that. That's a really good range for him, actually. Like, Bam Adebayo makes 37. Like, Alperen Sengun makes 35, 30, around that area. So I think that's a good area to keep Jalen Duren.
But he's arguing he's an all-NBA player, though, Haize. So that's why I think
I get that, and I understand that. But at the same time, like I said, and even like it's him and his agent aren't right for starting off the negotiations high. You should try to get as much as you can, but I do think let level heads prevail and split the difference or whatever it is. But I think eventually they're just going to come to the realization that Marcus probably not out there. Like, even if he was to go out and sign it, first of all, there's not a lot of teams with that much cap space anyway, so it would have to be a sign and trade. And I still don't think he's going to find that level of money out there, personally.
Yeah, and I think maybe a good in between here is that, hey, we're not going to give you the money you want, but we'll give you the contract. But if he got like a 3-year, $120 million deal, I think that'd be more than fair. Now, that's a little bit of a gamble for Detroit, because at that point, Detroit kind of has to be able to settle in. Like, okay, what if he like pops, right? And then now we're going to have it bird rights, but he's not going to be restricted at that point. And now you're going to have to play with the market and getting a little bit of battle for him. But to your point, I'm like, all right, well, that's fine, because if he gets to that point, I will gladly offer him the supermax to do what he needs to do. And so, again, just for the audience to know, this is the last year of his deal. He's a restricted free agent, so he's looking for brand new money that's going to sustain him. If I was the Detroit Pistons and him, and you want to make $40 million, okay, I'll give you $40 million on a 3-year deal, and we're going to let it work that way. We have a team option or a player option, depending on what you want the flexibility to look like. If it's lower money, it's a player option. If it's higher money, it's a team option. And as you know, hey, that's exactly how they go into those negotiations.
Yeah. So we'll see what happens with Jalen Duren. But before we get off the Pistons, man, we do got to talk about the deal that they made for Isaiah Joe. 2 second-round picks, I believe, is what they gave up for Isaiah Joe. They need shooting. Isaiah Joe's a really good shooter. He doesn't need the ball a lot. Not really a plus defender, I would call it, but a really good shooter. This is a solid move, but to me, they still need more volume shooting, in my opinion. How do you feel about this acquisition?
Well, he's a great shooter, making about $11 million a year. He's an impactful player as well. He really fit in a good defensive scheme. Again, it's OKC, so like I don't know how much is that is him, but he did a good job of falling in line. And Isaiah Joe, he's had a very interesting, start to his career. He didn't get an opportunity to play a whole lot early on, and then obviously he finds his way with the Thunder, and then kind of moves into this new tier after he obviously gets dealt with out of the Philadelphia 76ers situation. He signs a great extension, making $12 million, $12 million, 11 and 11. Isaiah Joe is a bona fide sniper. So should they decide, he's only 26, that they want to get off of, Duncan Robinson, or they want to add another shooter to Duncan Robinson, or if they decide, hey, we need to use Duncan Robinson to flip to something else, you're not going to lose that kind of the floor spacing gravity. And I think Isaiah Joe's actually a better defender than Duncan Robinson. Just, we'll see obviously what happens there. So I think it works out for them. And again, for the Thunder side, the Thunder save a lot of money. And so now the Thunder, they basically are in a place where they're going to put themselves, per Keith Smith, the Oklahoma City Thunder now projects to be at $14.8 million under the luxury tax, $22.8 million under the first apron, and $35.8 million under the second apron. This is without including Lou Dort, Isaiah Hartenstein, and Kendrick Williams. So if they resign those players, it's going to eat that space back up, but they have given themselves flexibility, which is exactly what OKC was trying to do, plus the fact they just added Sturts and Owe Otega in the draft as well.
That's a great point too. So we'll see what happens there. Of course, we'll be here every Friday to talk about whatever happens with the NBA. But we're going to end the show today talking about between LaMelo, Giannis, and Julius Randle, who has the most success with their new team next season based off what we know right now. We'll talk about all that right after this. But before we get into that, we got to get into a message from one of our sponsors. That is Odoo. Running a business shouldn't feel like you're trying to connect a bunch of systems that were never designed to work together. One app for accounting, another for inventory, and another for sales, and somehow none of them talk to each other. That's where Odoo comes in. Odoo is an all-in business management software that brings every part of your business together in one powerful platform. From sales and accounting to inventory and marketing, everything works in one place. Helping your team move faster, stay organized, and focused on growing the business instead of managing software. The best organizations know that success isn't just about talent. It's about having everyone working on the same goal. And that's true in sports, just like it is in business. Back when I worked in the sales office, the thing that brought us down was a lack of communication and not going in the same direction. Our business problems came when inventory, sales, and customers were on the wrong page. Just like in sports, organizations are successful when everyone is aligned. Great organizations win because operations matter, and that's why you should get Odoo. Try for free today at odoo.com/lockedon. That's odoo.com/lockedon. Also got to talk to you guys about another one of our sponsors, and that is Quo. Missed calls and slow follow-ups can cost businesses more than they realize. Every unanswered call, forgotten text, or delayed response could mean a missed opportunity, a lost customer, or revenue left on the table. That's why today's episode is brought to you by Quo, spelled Quo. The business communication system built so you never miss a call. Quo brings your team's calls, texts, and customer conversations together in one place, helping businesses stay organized, responsive, and connected. Quo simplifies communication for an entire team. Instead of juggling multiple phones, inboxes, and message threads, everyone stays on the same page and focuses on serving customers. As a customer, there's nothing worse than reaching out and feeling like your message disappeared into the void. Businesses that respond quickly stand out, and Quo helps make that possible by keeping every conversation visible and organized. Money's on the line? Always say hello with Quo. Try Quo for free, plus get 20% off your first 6 months when you go to quo.com/lockedonnba. That's QUO.com/lockedonnba. Or Locked On Game Night coming up next.
When that
Yeah, tripping on that one. It's not been a very good production day, but hey, I'll get that together.
All good.
It's Friday. But with that said, Swiper, you know the question, man. Giannis, LaMelo, and Julius Randle, who do you think has the most success with their new team next season?
I mean, Giannis, obviously much better player than all of them. I think they're going to be in position to be a top 6, 7 seed, hopefully 6 seed. When you're making that kind of a trade, they need to fill out the rest of the roster. I am wanting to see a season where Giannis is like, he is himself and he's playing 65, 70 games. And they're in a situation where he's able to really prove that he is still in best in the world conversations. He is an absolutely just otherworldly talented player. And I want to see him play in the playoffs. I want to see him compete at the highest level. And last year was a down year for Giannis because he only played 36 games this last season, but he's still an all-star. He averaged 28 points, 10 rebounds, which is low. So this is the lowest he's had in points in almost 6 seasons, basically. This is the lowest he's been in rebounds since 2017. And then from an assist point, he was 5.4, which is, again, like that's the lowest that he's been at since 2000 or 2018. So like all the way across the board, the injuries really zapped him. and he only played 28.9 minutes a game. I would love to see a world where we get that 19-20 Giannis level again, not the same level defender, but 30 minutes a game, 31 minutes a game, 32 maybe minutes a game. I want him to finish top 5 in MVP next year. I want him to get back to being a 30, 12, and 6 guy like he was the last several seasons. Giannis is an incredible player. I think it's easily going to be the man that has found himself with the Miami Heat.
So I think Giannis is going to have a really good season with the Miami Heat. The question that I have right now about them is that everything else around Giannis and Bam. Like, I have tons of questions in regards to that. That's the only reason I'm not picking Giannis. I do think he's going to have a really good season, but I think LaMelo with the Minnesota Timberwolves, they also have questions now with big man depth. They gave up all of their big man depth in 2 moves, right? But like, I look at the 3-guard rotation between Melo, Edwards, and Ayo Dosunmu. That's going to be a killer lineup that you can play, and even Ayo can play some 3 there too. He can play a little small forward. I think the balance there is going to be really good. I think you got still Rudy Gobert there defensively to clean a lot of stuff up. They're going to keep McDaniels and players like that. So I think that Minnesota got exactly what they want. They still need to find kind of a stopgap for now their power forward position, but I just think if you're talking about overall which team is going to go further, I think the Minnesota Timberwolves are going to go further next season than the Miami Heat. Based off that could change as they fill out their roster. Based off right now, I think it's Melo.
Yeah, I mean, that's not even a question. The Wolves have a much better roster, and they were able to keep so many people on their team. Anthony Edwards. The way I'm looking at it right now is LaMelo Ball, Anthony Edwards, Jaden McDaniels, and Rudy Gobert. That's their 1, 2, 3, and 5. I think they're going to add somebody in free agency and or trade for someone. They just signed Ayo Dosunmu to a $100 million deal. He's going to be their backup 1 and 2. Mike Conley's going to be on the roster still. Terrence Shannon Jr. will be in year 3. Kyle Anderson, Joan Behringer, Isaiah Evans, they just drafted this year in the 2nd round. Jalen Clark is there still. Zakarsky is also another player that they have.
I forgot about Zakarsky.
Yeah, like they actually have a lot of players. They're not super big, but Behringer and Zakarsky are, I think, going to be have big ask this year behind Rudy Gobert, should they not be able to find another 4. So Jaden, he could play a lot more 4 this year. So LaMelo's going to have their offense moving really up-tempo. The passing is going to be incredible. I do hope that he takes some of the pressure off of Anthony Edwards as a playmaker and as a passer, but LaMelo's going to have to really make sure his scoring is there because LaMelo has some scoring difficulties. He's never been a super efficient player, but if you're playing on a team like this, may not matter all that much. So I'm excited to see what the team looks like, and I'm excited to see what LaMelo and Anthony Edwards look like in particular next to each other.
Yeah, I think they're going to be really fun next to each other. But, I mean, there are, of course, some signs that it may not be as smooth. They're going to have to try to work that out. But I think LaMelo kind of learning to play with Khan last year and be off ball a little bit more than he's ever been in his career. I think that's a nice step to learn how to play with Anthony Edwards. I think Ant and Chris Finch are going to make sure that he's locked in and plays their way. So I think we could see the best season yet of LaMelo with the Minnesota Timberwolves, and that just makes it very dangerous. Neither one of us picked him, but what are the Nets doing? The Nets are such an interesting roster. They have so many young players on it. They added another young player in this draft. You got Julius Randle there. There's been some talk that they can go after Mitchell Robinson in free agency, which is still mind-blowing. I think they're are they aiming to try to be the Portland Trailblazers in the East, where it's they have so much where they're good, so much where they're bad. What do you think's happening with the Nets next season?
Allocating their roster for salary dumps for assets. So Julius Randle, Michael Porter Jr. is there. They might try to dump off him. Michael Porter Jr. is making $40 million next year. Crazy. They might see if they can get we got an expiring contract. Do you want to get rid of salary? Well, then here you can take back our player, and we can take back the player you have with years left, and we'll take back some of your draft assets. And really, the Nets just need to be trying to get as many of their picks back and get their cupboards full. Because I think the biggest thing for them is just you want to make sure that over the next few years, you're truly able to rebuild your roster. They have their own pick this year, 2nd round picks. They have the Nets have the right to swap with Houston next year in the 1st round. They have the New York Knicks pick next year as well. They have the 2nd round pick from the Lakers next year. 2028, they have 2 1st round picks, one be affiliate protected picks 1 through 8, and then they have their own pick. And then you get the 2029. They got the Knicks pick again because this is that Mikal Bridges trade. They have the Houston, Dallas, Phoenix. They have swap rights there. So they have 2 picks in 2029. And then you go to 2030. They have another 1st round pick. And you just kind of look at what they're doing. In 2031, they got 2 more picks. They need to just be like, here, we're going to continue to hoard assets and just give us more ability. That way in the future, we can rebuild our squad at will. And I think that really needs to be the whole objective for them. Take your worst players and your worst contracts. We'll take them. And then we're really going to just play with the cap sheet, and we're going to have all the trade assets of the 2030s.
I guess we'll see, man. I guess we'll see. The Nets are a very interesting team to watch. I like a lot of their young talent down there, too. So if they can start stacking those assets, which I do think is going to be a little bit harder. I think teams are going to hoard their own first-round picks a little bit more as they adjust to the new tanking rules and all that and the protection rules. But they are set up uniquely to benefit from that. Randle could be flipped to another team. Like you said, Michael Porter Jr. could, too. So we'll see how many moves the Nets make between now and the start of the season.
Absolutely, man. I can't wait, bro. This is free agency opening up soon. As well, like this is going to be a lot of stuff happening, and I think this is going to be fireworks show. Teams are going to be trying to sign people like to very workable deals. Like Jose Alvarado just signed for a 3-year deal worth just over $14 million. So again, to give you an idea, like this is a good rotation player, not making a lot of money. I think teams are going to try to squeeze players as much as possible.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll see. It's going to be a fun offseason. Anything left, Swipe, before we get up out of here, man?
Nah, man, great episode.
Absolutely. I'll make sure y'all support Swipe over on Locked On Nuggets. You can check me out over on Locked On Bulls. Locked On NBA Game Night is free and available on every podcasting app and platform of your choice, as well as YouTube, the Odyssey app, Amazon Fire TV, Roku TV. We'll catch you guys next Friday. Peace, y'all.